kitchen, you guys. I'm gonna pull my hair up because I'm getting ready to cook again. And as you can see, it's gonna be something that I know everybody already knows how to make, but this is gonna be kind of a little tribute to my mom. We're all kind of staying inside these days because of Corona. And I'm trying to leave this little video record for my children and grandchildren and whoever might wanna learn how to cook like the Titus family did. So, actually look at this. Y'all see that? That's Corona hands. I used to get a manicure all the time and had these lovely long nails. Well, they've all gone away, but in the process, they remind me of my mom's hands. She had very, very busy hands. One of her sweetest little sayings was, busy hands are happy hands. And I have to tell you, her hands were always very, very busy. She had all 8 of us kids. She did not work outside the home, of course. She was from a generation where the daddies went away and did their thing and the mamas stayed in the home and did their thing. So today is my little tribute to Bonnie, her little busy working hands, and what an incredible little mama she was. Okay, so y'all, I soak my beans. It makes them cook a little faster for one thing, and the other thing is, beans aren't washed before they're put in a bag. Sometimes you'll find like little shells and stuff. You just need to get rid of that. Any bean that comes to the top is not good. Just get rid of it. So I soaked mine for a couple of hours before I cook them. And look, this is why. Look at this water. This is dirty bean water. You don't want to eat that. Sometimes you'll even find some little sediment in it. So you just toss that and start with fresh water. So I just use enough water to cover my beans completely, and you start with cold water. You always want to put cold beans in cold water. And then the only other thing I'm going to do is, I'll show you when I get over to the stove. We're going to add salt and pepper and a ham hock. Okay, so my beans have been going for a little bit, but I wanted to show you what I do. You have to start with quite a bit of salt for beans, and good ground black pepper as well. And you have to have some kind of pork, any kind of pig. You can have some old ham from a ham bone. You can do salt pork, which is also called fat back, and it's actually fat from the back of a pig. It's mostly all fat. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of lean in it, but it's mostly fat. Or you can use pork belly, which is, guess where that comes from? The belly. That's actually got a little bit more meat in it, and it's sometimes called streaky bacon. They call it streaky bacon in England. And in the country, in the United States, they call it streakoline. And that sounds like streakoline. So just remember, if you are using salt pork, it's called that for a reason. So you'll just need to go sparingly with your salt at the beginning, and then after everything cooks down, you can adjust as you go. Anyway, I use a ham hock because that's what my mom did. And so this is all about our little family history. But a ham hock is just from the lower part of the leg of the pig. It's still got a little bit of rind on it, and it's smoked. It's mostly bone and a little bit of fat and a little bit of the rind, the skin. That gives you incredible flavor. The smoking was a way of preserving a long time ago, but it actually imparts so much to a pot of beans or a pot of greens or whatever. So you kind of have to have that. We're kind of trying to eat more plant-based a couple of nights a week. I don't know if this really counts because we're putting a little meat in it. So this is about where we are. They've been cooking for about 2 hours. You need to adjust your seasoning, probably add a little bit more water. I'm gonna add a little bit more water because they are kind of thick. I don't know if you can see. And you want them to be real soupy. So you're just gonna add some more water, stir some more, keep them on a pretty good little simmer where they're bubbly, and cook them down. Y'all, you should smell this kitchen. Look at that. What I'm gonna do later is I'll take the ham hock out. I told you there's not very much meat on it, but I'll take the ham hock out anyway, and I'll just put it on a little cutting board, and I'll chop off a few little pieces of meat and put them back in there. Okay guys, while everything's cooking, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my mom, Bonnie. She was raised on a farm in Oklahoma in a small area called Moscow Flats. And she moved, as soon as she got out of high school, she moved to Woodward, which was not far away, but it was the closest next big city. She got a job in a pharmacy on the town square, and there was a soda fountain, and she worked behind the soda fountain. And it didn't take long. She was extremely smart. And there was a doctor next door who used to come in and get all of his supplies and so on. And he didn't take him long to realize how sharp my mom was and how kind. And he recruited her to come and be his secretary. So she turned in her apron and she became his secretary. And on the weekends, what they did for fun back then was go to dances. And so, as I told you, my dad was a great musician. And even though he had a Singer sewing machine store for his full-time work, he played with Bob Wills and his Texas Playboys on the weekends. They traveled around doing dances. And my dad was the fiddler. And he was a dandy. He was one of the original sharp-dressed men way back when. So they married, met at one of the dances, and my dad scooped her away. As I told you, he wagged her all over this country. But within the first year of marriage, they'd moved 3 times, and I was born. They ended up back in Illinois, not far from his family. And my mom will tell the story that from then on, he continued to have businesses and she continued to have babies. And she seldom ever had to, as she would say, she was very G-rated. She never had a pot to potty in or a window to throw it out of, for the most part. And she was so resourceful, such an amazing cook, a wonderful housekeeper, a wise woman, an excellent wife in every regard. Now I have to tell you, for a woman who was raised on a little bitty farm in the middle of Oklahoma, she was amazing. Of course, when I was a kid, I didn't realize that some of the cooking that she was doing was anything exceptional, but she developed a repertoire of foods that was far beyond a normal country housewife. She could make choux paste, and not S-H-O-E, but C-H-O-U-X, for eclairs and cream puffs, like the best of any French bakers I've ever seen. She knew things about cooking that just floored me as I became an adult and realized what an incredible cook she was. She developed in me a love for all culinary things. Okay, what we're gonna do now is, I'm gonna tell you about cornbread. Of course, when I was growing up, my mom made really good yellow cornbread. My dad used to crumble it up. He'd eat 1 bowl of beans with cornbread in it. Then he'd eat another bowl of beans with cornbread in it. And then for dessert, he always had these really cool little aluminum glasses, and we would keep them in the freezer, and when it was time for supper, we'd pour Daddy a glass of milk in the aluminum cup, and it kept it really icy cold. So by the time he finished a couple of bowls of beans and a couple of pieces of cornbread, he would have a little bit of milk left, and so he'd crumble that piece of cornbread in his milk and stir it up, and it made this slop that I thought was really kind of nasty, but he loved it, and so that was part of our growing up. And so we've always done cornbread with our beans. As I told you earlier, nutritionist Maddie has us kind of watching more of what we're eating. And so my cornbread that I've kind of evolved a recipe for over the years was, sad to say, it was 1 box of Jiffy cornbread and a half a box of Jiffy yellow cake mix. It made it sweet and really light. Probably not a true Southern cornbread, but it was very, very good. So, what we're gonna do tonight is a true Southern hot water cornbread, because it really doesn't have anything in it except self-rising cornmeal, white self-rising cornmeal. So I'm gonna start with about probably 1.5 cups of that in a bowl. And then we're just gonna go over to the kitchen sink, and I'll bring this over and you can see what I'm doing. But we wanna get our water really, really hot so that we can just wait for a little ride, huh? Okay, so here we go. We're gonna get our water really, really hot. And my water, I keep my water heater really high because we have a lot of people who need to take baths and we have a small water heater. So if we keep the temperature extra high, you need less hot water and more cold water. Okay, so we're just gonna start making this into a little kind of a slop. You just kind of want to turn your water down a little bit lower. Just start mixing it. It's going to kind of have a little paste at first. You just keep adding. Woo, slopped it a little bit there. Keep adding. Keep adding. Keep adding. Ooh, pretty. Gets really light and fluffy. And you want it to kind of slide off your spoon. Maybe a little bit thinner. You kind of want it to be maybe like a little thicker than a pancake batter. I think this looks good. Okay. If you get it real thin, you can do what's called Lacy Cornbread. And if you do it real thick, you can make hoe cake. Hoe cake, like on the blade of a hoe a long time ago. Also, I've heard also that it's not just the blade of a hoe, that it was some kind of a pan, probably cast iron a long time ago, that was called a hoe pan. But it's more fun to tell the story that they used to make it out around the campfire, and they would make their little cornmeal and make it into little patties and cook it over the campfire on the blade of a hoe. Anyway, that's part of Joel's family heritage. His dad and mom used to make hoe cake. My mom and dad used to make cornbread. So today what we're going to do is hot water cornbread. I'm not going to add any salt or anything because it's self-rising flour. So cast iron is great to cook in. It's a great transmitter of heat. It keeps everything kind of evenly hot. Your pan won't get hot spots sometimes on a burner. You know, it'll be real hot right in the middle and the sides will be less hot. This distributes heat really, really well. And a well-seasoned cast iron skillet lasts 100 years. And so what I'm doing is plain old shortening. My mom used to swear by shortening. I know a lot of cooks today want to use like a lighter canola oil, but my mom swore that like when she fried chicken or whatever she fried, really hot Crisco, for some reason she felt like the food didn't absorb as much of it. I don't know why she thought that. Maybe there's some science to it, but because she did it, that's what I'm gonna do. Once we get our shortening melted in here, you want it to get almost smoking hot. It needs to be very, very warm. All right, so we're gonna just drop like a nice little rounded spoonful in. You don't wanna do too many at a time. You'll cool your oil off too much. Y'all, this is really pretty. Let me show you what it's looking like. What do y'all think? Pretty, huh? Okay, it's sizzling, it's making little holes. This is gonna be like Lacy cornbread. It looks kind of like a little doily. Get all my proper tools. I like utensils. I have something for everything. Oh, y'all. Hold on to my skillet here. Oh. I'm gonna just move them around a little bit in the oil. We're gonna want them to be very brown. Okay, I'm not leaving you. I'm just going over here to get a plate and a paper towel because since we are watching fat, I want to drain these little guys. Oh. See, if you have your oil hot enough, the food doesn't absorb it. If your oil isn't hot enough, it's just going to the food is going to just sit in it and soak up the oil. If you have it hot enough, it's going to fry it real fast. It's going to be really crisp, and most of it will drain off. Pretty, y'all. Look at these pretty little brown beauties. Oh, they're going to be so good. So good. Oh, yummy. Yummy, yummy. Okay, I'm going to take these out, and then y'all will be able to take a peek at what they look like. Beautiful. Look at this. See? Look at that. Isn't that pretty? Look at this. Isn't that cute? Oh, delicious. Pretty. I hope y'all will try this. I think you'll like it. I'm gonna go cook some more. Now, when I get down the road a little bit on these, Grandpa likes hot and spicy. He likes anything with a little kick to it. So I did go out to the garden and I picked some little, both red and green jalapenos. And I'm gonna put some of those in the batter for a few of Grandpa's little hot water cornbreads. He's gonna love it. I decided maybe I better eat one for you. See, listen to that. And the flavor, since it's just self-rising cornmeal, it almost tastes a little bit like a corn chip. Delicious. It's a little bit softer in the middle, really crunchy around the edges. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to tell you, the first time I ever had red beans and rice was when I was dating Dad. I was invited to his house for dinner, and they were from New Orleans, and so they were having red beans and rice, and they didn't have cornbread with that. They had probably had, if I recall, they probably had a baguette, French bread. So I didn't say anything because I knew it would be rude, but I thought it was the strangest thing that they would put beans on top of rice. To me, coming from a home where you just had a bowl of beans and cornbread, that seemed like putting a starch on a starch. And I remember calling my mom and telling her how strange that was after my date. To me, it was like putting, you know, beans on top of a bowl of mashed potatoes or something like that. And of course, my mom laughed with me and told me, no, that was quite the Southern tradition. And of course, since then, it's become something we truly love. And I've incorporated that into our family, of course. So now we do have beans and rice, but I've kept my Titus traditions of having cornbread with it. And I have to say, Joel does not mind one little bit. So here it is when it's done, you guys. We like to put a little bit of chopped white or green onion on the top of ours, maybe a little bit of hot sauce. Look, there's those little wonderful chunks of ham hock, and they're just soupy and delicious and wonderful. I hope you guys will try this. Oh, I know everybody has their own recipe, but this is the Titus one. It's our wonderful heritage. I'm gonna taste it now. Okay, here we go. Ooh, a little bit hot. Oh, so good, guys. A bean is such a simple thing and so cheap. I have to say, no matter where we lived, whether we lived in a little wooden frame house or a metal trailer, maybe a little brick ranch style, whether it was spring, summer, winter, fall, my mom always made beans for us. She probably had 50 cents in a bag of beans, maybe $1 in a ham hock. Cornbread probably cost her, you know, 25 cents for the meal that she used in it, and one egg. She could feed a family of 10, 8 kids, and my mom and dad for, you know, a couple of bucks. It's pretty frugal cooking, and it was fabulous food. We are so fortunate to have had the kind of childhood that we did. Y'all, these remind me of my mama's. At the end of her sleeves were the very hands of Jesus. By the end of her life, they were pretty gnarled and knotted, but they had been hands that served and loved, and they were beautiful to me. Okay guys, the leftover beans are in the fridge for tomorrow, and as you know, beans are just gonna get better every day. And I just wanted to close today by telling you guys that my sweet little dad, he adored my mom. And after every meal, I don't even care what it was, he would scooch back from the table and he'd say, hey Mom, that was larapin, and he'd rub his belly and he'd say, man, I think that was about the best meal I ever had. And I thought that was cute because sometimes it was just, you know, very, very simple food like cornbread and beans or leftovers. But that was the way he validated her for working her little fingers to the bone for our family. And I think I did tell you guys, you know that he was quite the musician, but I don't think I shared with you that he was also a quite serious lover of fine poetry. And this is something that this is a recitation he would share with us on nights that we did have cornbread and beans. And here you go. Beans, beans, the musical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot. The more you toot, the better you feel. So eat some beans with every meal. There you go, from my serious daddy, K.R. Titus, to you. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for listening to my long-winded stories. I hope you have a wonderful time this week with the people that you love. God bless you so much, and I'll see you soon. Please always remember and never forget that cooking is loving 1000%.